Welcome to another exciting episode of the Business of Digital podcast, featuring your hosts, Matt Siltala and Dave Rohr. Hey guys, excited to have you on another one of these Business of Digital podcast episodes. I appreciate you, as always, joining us. And we have Dave with us, of course. How's it going, Dave?
It is going pretty good for what is today? Wednesday. I don't even know what day it is.
So, yeah.
That we're recording.
One of those days.
One of those weeks.
So I have to laugh, and I have to, I have to joke at the, we're always, the titles for these episodes are always evolving, but I love the name of this one that Dave put together for us. It's Digital Project Management 101 or something like that.
Something like that.
Oh, it just makes me smile. I love it, Dave.
There's been times where I would finalize and process the final MP3, and the title that I decided to name it would be completely changed from what I had just figured out like an hour earlier. I'd be like, oh no, that's much better, and then I'd do a little research and I'd be like, yeah, that's much better, and I'm like, oh crikey, I got to change it everywhere.
So this was interesting. I just I'm going to let you jump into it, but it came from some sessions that you've done before. And the idea comes from, helping people do a better job with their project management and stuff like that. So, or something like that. But
something along those lines. I'm not a project manager. I don't have a certification, but having been in agencies, working with small companies, working with really large companies, being an in-house person where I was a team of one, and then we grew, watching your projects die on the vine and watching campaigns die and watching your babies, your hopeful flowers that were going to blossom and just, bring in the sales and bring in the leads, just completely, be stonewalled by people for no reason.
Especially when it's it's good.
Well, so yeah, think about how many times, and I know you've talked about some examples in the past, but think about how you've worked on some projects before at Avalanche where you spent 3 months or 6 months or just, even a couple weeks, your team did, and, bless their heart, they put everything into it, and then it just goes nowhere.
Yeah. One that I'm thinking off the top of my head, and it's kind of sad. We were doing this pretty awesome, what I felt was an awesome project for MTV, believe it or not.
Nice. Who?
And MTV.
Young kids. This is, if you're a young kid watching, they used to play music videos there about 20 years ago.
Yeah, it used to be music.
It was YouTube, but you couldn't control it.
Now MTV stands for what? Miscellaneous. Anyway, sorry.
Trash.
So, yeah.
Something. I don't know.
Anyway, it was an amazing project, but some of the right people, or at least some of the, I don't know if you want to call them lawyers or HR people, or
take all the fun out of stuff.
Yes, they were not involved in the project, and we usually do a very good job of making sure that everybody that needs to be involved and making sure that we're not wasting time or wasting clients' money, because even if it's a case where they at the end of the day say, sorry, this was our bad, we can't run it, like, you still feel bad that you made people waste money. And anyway, this was one of those cases where the team loved the project. It was amazing. Like, it was seriously like, and I wish I could talk more about it, but I just can't. But it was seriously going to be what I felt was one of the most amazing content pieces we ever put out there. And at the 11th hour, as they do, they get struck down by legal HR people types. And so it was just people we found out that didn't get involved. But it does bring up a good point, which I think you're going to kind of jump into a lot of this stuff, Dave. But this proves the case that sometimes everything that you do is just like stuff's going to happen still. But if you have a plan in place where you're getting people involved, you have all the right teams, you do everything that you can to minimize this kind of risk, for the most part, it's going to work out for you. And it's going to help save you, and it's going to help save your projects if you put a little bit of effort into making sure that it's done right from the beginning. Obviously, sometimes this kind of stuff happens, but we found that it happens to us a lot less when we make sure from the very start we're working with all the people that could potentially, approve or kill the project.
Yeah. And as we always tell you, we are going to drop in a bunch of content and probably some links into the on the website in the final description. So if you're listening to iTunes or whatever your favorite player is, feel free to go to the website and check it out, because I'll actually have an outline. This is a talk I've done in the past, and I continue to do for various conferences and various even in-house people. What is it right now? This is an older deck. It's almost 100 slides, which could probably be more or less. But I'll drop in the outline and some other stuff, because we're going to kind of hop around because we only have 15 to 20 minutes. So we can't really cover something that I do in an hour to 3 hours.
And we do that for you guys because we want you to keep paying attention to us.
So, and I think it's helpful too.
Yes.
Not everything is going to be easy, especially if you're driving or running or, on the, not the running machine, what's the other thing people, I've
elliptical?
Used it too. Yes, thank you, the elliptical.
No problem.
I'm trying to write notes. If you can read your handwriting while you're on an elliptical, bless you. I can barely read my own handwriting when I'm not.
It's scary that we're starting to be able to figure out what each other's thinking or finish the sentences. You know that,
That
right?
is scary. 100 episodes in, it's all it took. No. I think that leads me to probably to jump a little bit ahead, but in my little outline, but teams involved. I think we always think of anytime we're doing a project, and I'll just use this one example I have, that we built out this awesome thing for an e-commerce client, and it was going to be online, offline. It was going to be all this stuff. And then it just didn't happen. Wasn't because of layers and other stuff, but can't say why. And I don't even know why exactly some days, but it just didn't happen. Yeah. But I think a lot of projects run into some stakeholder, some power broker, some person at a higher level or some level that has enough say or you can wield enough swords and power that they can strike down any project for right or wrong reasons. And I think what we always need to do is think about all of the different platforms that are going to be involved. So, if you're building a landing page for PPC and you're like, I just have to talk to so-and-so. Sometimes you need to talk to more than just so-and-so. If you're just taking and rehashing and re-updating, I've worked in the past where if you deal with 401k, insurance, student loans, financial, anything, we were told one time we couldn't update the title tags for a certain section of the site because it had been approved by the SEC and certain groups and boards of people. Crazy. Because of it can't be marketing, it can't overpromise things. So just because you think you're just updating a small page, and maybe you're just a small business and you're like, whatever, it's just me. That's easy. This entire thing is probably not going to help you. But when you work at a company where, you have 20 people on a marketing or even a couple, and you have an owner and a bunch of other people, knowing who controls what is very handy. So the social network, radio, CRM, who has the domains. If you want to set up a subdomain for a campaign and you walk over to your IT person, or maybe you outsource it, and they tell you that it takes 2 weeks for turnaround and you didn't know that, and it's supposed to go up live next week, who's in trouble?
Yeah.
So from the get-go, I always try to suggest, and I know I probably fail sometimes myself doing these, but try to think about everyone and everything that would touch. If you're working with an SEO agency or a PPC agency, what's the very first thing an SEO person asks for? The very first thing I ask for is, can I have access to your Bing webmaster? Can I have access to your Google? Can I have access to analytics? Can I have access to your back end? For me, I have a list of things that I ask for access. And if I don't have them, that can change what I can deliver to you.
Well, something that, as you were talking about all this, the whole PPC, SEO type stuff, it made me think, and I can't remember the exact situation or what happened, but I know that it ended up being pretty bad in this particular case, like getting some pages de-indexed because of something that was included on. So there was like one of those landing pages that was created for PPC, and it was solely for that kind of stuff, but it wasn't. Nobody else knew that page was going up or anything was being done.
I that doesn't shock me.
Yeah, and so this is where you say, well, why should an SEO and a PPC team talk to each other? Well, this is a perfect example. There was something that was put on that page that lost some ranking. I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was some code on it that wasn't good, and if the SEO team had just looked at it, they would have been able to say, hey, this is fine, let's just do this, move this, whatever, blah, 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 and you'd be done with it. But, as it turned out, it ended up being a big sticky situation, and it was because a couple people didn't talk that they didn't, that people they were thinking was okay that they didn't talk. And so just,
talk to everyone.
Talk to everyone.
Yeah, talk to your SEO agency. The number of audits that I've done where I have found an inordinate number of subdomains that are either old campaigns or weird redirects, and it was probably set up by a social team or the PPC team or some partnership team that or biz dev team that didn't talk to anyone because they went to IT and they submitted it and it was approved and now it's out there, and now they don't want it indexed, but it's already been out there for 2 years.
Yeah.
Or you start running a campaign and you're dropping, a couple grand into Facebook every month or every week or every day for this campaign, and you don't talk to the CRM people and you don't talk to the analytics people to validate that it's the UTM codes and everything is actually working. Or maybe you decide to launch something and someone else does, and you guys use the same campaign name.
Yeah.
Because you're both on the same campaign and you're both promoting the same thing.
Oops.
And, you don't really differentiate your name too much. So when it comes in, you have to do weird drill downs and filters to get it. So yeah, just knowing who's involved and thinking beyond it, I think is always a big thing. And then another thing is stakeholders. Knowing
yes.
who those stakeholders are in each of those groups. And
knowing how to talk to them too. But anyway, that's another.
Well, and it's also getting buy-in. So if I need the IT person to do XYZ for me, or a developer because, we need to have it on this website, or we can't have a subdomain because of XYZ. I now need 5 hours a week for the next 3 weeks of a developer to just do these minor changes. Well, then if they're booked for the next 3 months, you need to be able to sell to their boss and maybe even their boss's boss to prioritize their time over other things.
That got me thinking of something, Dave. And it's crazy because I never thought that something like this would even exist or whatever. But I have a friend that just graduated with his master's. And basically what he specializes in is he specializes in talking marketing strategies to the C-suite types. And so he basically can take the language of someone like you or me, or a PPC person, an SEO,
and go up 2 levels or a level.
Yeah, and go up 2 levels where they can understand it, where they can then give buy-in. And it's interesting because that we're talking about this because just recently one of my partners reached out to me and said, hey, do you know anybody that could do, and his basic question was, we need someone to be able to know how to talk to a C-suite type on this and this and this. And it was, anyway, it's just interesting because this is exactly what you're talking about.
Well, and I think I've talked about this in the past, but a good example is a debate I had with 2 different SEOs about why would you deliver a technical audit in PowerPoint? And it's because when you're an in-house person, you have to sell your VP, your CMO, depending on how big your company is. You have to sell someone internally on the marketing side to approve these. Then you have to go to the dev side, especially if it's a technical audit. to make these canonical changes, to make the href laying, to make, so that we don't have 5 H1s on every page, so that, we do things correctly. Now you need dev resources. So that audit, to speak to the marketer, is one thing, but then that person that got the audit, or they did the audit, they then have to reshape it and know who they're talking to and who the stakeholders are. And you have to start tying into their metrics. And I think that's the other thing that people a lot miss, is asking those questions of what metrics or what are their goals for that quarter or year, and then tying your project into it. The bigger the company, the more you're going to have to do that, because if people are bonused on XYZ and your project does not impact XYZ, you need to figure out a way it does, or they're not going to care. And they care, but they only have a finite number of resources and time. You are going to fall to the bottom of the list, or at least further down.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But yeah, knowing what their limits are, what their goals are, and I can even include this aligning the goals I always talk about.
Yeah.
Align your project, go from your company goals to your team or your marketing goals down to, your SEO or PPC or social media, and figure out how your project then taps into those goals, and then work it all the way up, so that wherever you are talking to different groups, you can kind of figure out how your goals can touch that one, or at least try.
I like
and maybe if it doesn't, it doesn't. But, tell them that, next time they need something, they'll become priority 1 as a thank you, even if you don't have time. Buy the devs some pizza and say, hey, if you guys stay late, our marketing team, we got some budget. Well, really, but we'll find some, and we're going to buy you guys, pizza, or
Be surprised how far pizza goes.
Food, or whatever kind of food they want. We'll throw you a pizza party. Not at Chuck E. Cheese, unless you really want it. Then hey, but yeah, do what you got to do.
Very cool. So you guys, we gave you a lot more than just something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have if those were your final thoughts or last thoughts before we wrap this up, Dave.
I think that's it. It's just the whenever you think of a project that's going to touch a couple teams, or could possibly touch a couple teams, I think the very first thing to do is to think about who could swoop in at the last minute and squash it. Is it HR? Is it, lawyers? If you're doing an infographic or something you think it might be a little bit questionable or not on brand, get buy-in from as many people as you need to, and figure out a way to tie it to their goals so that it becomes important to them. So when someone does come up and object to it, they sit down and be like, we thought about that, and here's why we decided that it's worth the risk.
Very cool.
So
all right,
that's all
guys.
I got.
We got that was great. That was a lot. So for now, we'll shut up. Well, anyway, for Dave Rohr with Northside Metrics, I'm Matt with Matt Siltala, actually, with Avalanche Media, and we thank you guys for joining us. We'll hit you on the next one. Bye, guys.
Thanks.